conference of the President of the European Council and of the President of the European Commission following the 22nd EU-China summit point out that we have issued a press release on behalf of the two presidents, and there will be a Q&A session, but first I give the floor to the President of the European Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased that we could speak by video conference to discuss important topics for both the EU and China today. In fact, our diplomatic relations are 45 years old this year and evolving. Our discussions today were open and substantive, and we discussed many topics we agree on, but of course we discussed also topics we disagree on. We focused on 4 important areas. The first one, COVID-19 and the economic consequences, the economic recovery. The second one is the EU-China relationship. The third one is Hong Kong and the important question for us of human rights. And the fourth topic is related to the international issues. Concernant le premier aspect,
on the first topic, COVID-19 and its repercussions, we had an opportunity to say how important it was that we had total transparency and take stock of the international response to the pandemic. We also highlighted how we had become very active on trying to seek out a vaccine, which we think should be a common good, which would be accessible to the whole world and at an affordable price. We also think that an ambitious recovery, economically speaking, will be extremely important. And we have explained the European procedures, the European budget, the MFF, and a recovery fund to support the economy.
EU-China relationship, and we stressed the need to implement the commitments made at the 2019 EU-China summit. More particularly, we discussed very concrete topics. The first one is trade. We have a dynamic trading relationship with China. We trade on average over 1 billion euros a day. It's huge, and the EU is China's first trading partner. But progress is needed in many areas to rebalance this relationship, and we made clear that we need to resolve concrete problems such as market access, subsidies, regulatory issues, public procurement, forced technology transfers, level playing field, and WTO reforms. Nous avons aussi eu l'occasion.
We also had an opportunity to say on both sides that we think it's important to continue intensive work on negotiating an ambitious investment agreement. And we also noted progress on the agreement on geographical indications, which we hope to be able to wrap up in the near future. Now, of course, there's an essential topic we had an opportunity to touch upon, that is to highlight climate change and the need for an international response to this. We really need to work on stability because climate change is a threat to humanity, to the entire world, and also because we feel that there's a clear link with the economy and with the trade issue. So we need to work on climate change too, to ensure that there is as little unfair competition as possible globally, which is linked to climate change. Now, you know our objectives for 2050 and what we've done on 2030 on that target. And we believe that we need to work very hard on this issue in international multinational fora so that we can get a more general response to climate change. We also had an opportunity to discuss the digital agenda and the need to ensure that we have confidence, trust, that we can fight against threats to cybersecurity, that we need to fight all the disinformation techniques which are being used, which will undermine people's trust.
Hong Kong and human rights. We expressed our grave concerns about the proposed national security law for Hong Kong. We called on China to follow the promises made to the people of Hong Kong and the international community regarding Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy and guaranteed freedoms. Je voudrais ajouter que nous...
I'd just like to add that, of course, we support the idea of the concept of one country, two systems. We stress that 50% of EU investment in China actually transits through Hong Kong. There are 1,600 European-linked companies that are active in Hong Kong. Now, we think we have to respect the political neutrality of those businesses. We cannot accept pressure being put on them to waive from that political neutrality. We've also discussed the whole issue of minorities and human rights, respect of human rights. We mentioned specific cases, a Swedish national and 2 Canadian nationals. I think you're familiar with those cases. We believe that their detention appears to be arbitrary in nature. Finally, we had an opportunity to raise international issues. We talked about Iran. We exchanged our views on that. We also talked about Afghanistan and the Korean Peninsula. And we appealed to all to get involved in trying to achieve a peaceful solution multilaterally. We also raised the issue of the safety of shipping, maritime transport. The vast amount of world trade is channeled by ship, and it's very important for the situation in the South China Sea to settle and ensure that there is security and economic development. Now, this video conference has given us an opportunity to have an in-depth, intensive discussion. We've touched upon a whole raft of national, international and bilateral issues. And this kind of meeting, this kind of video conference is an opportunity to emphasize democracy, the rule of law, human rights, the protection and defense of minorities. And we've had this dialogue without any taboos, no holds barred. We've had a frank and open discussion. We've indicated the areas where we feel we should make progress on trade, on the economy. And it's an opportunity to take action, deeds, not just words. We also think it's very important to stress the importance of strategic autonomy for the EU in the future. We believe that this relationship has to be founded on transparency and reciprocity. It's with that in mind that we intend to press on with this discussion at the highest level. After the summer, in fact, we will have an opportunity to continue with this high-level dialogue. We'll be able to take stock on what has been achieved in the meantime, revert to these somewhat more difficult topics. Now, there was supposed to be a summit in Leipzig in September. It won't be possible to hold that. However, we do hold out some hope to hold such a summit at some stage where the Chinese authorities could meet the 27 leaders of the EU. So those are the subjects I wanted to talk about to you this afternoon.
Thank you. Indeed,